Welcome back to the We Are Careers show. This is our first episode as part of our big relaunch, and we're absolutely thrilled to be back, as always, with some fantastic guests across the career sphere, chatting all things careers, which we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail in this episode today. So, Sabiha, welcome back. How does it feel to be back in the We Are Careers studio?
Oh, it feels really good, I've got to say. Certainly does, Chris. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, a reminder of what we're all about. The We Are's Careers Show is your fortnightly go-to for careers professional working within the UK market, but beyond as well, because we know we've got some international followers out there who want to improve and enhance their continuous professional development by finding out the latest issues impacting the career development sector. Each show, we bring you the latest updates in the sector to keep you well informed. Plus, we bring you inspirational guests based on topics that matter to you. The aim is simple: to connect and build a strong community of career professionals so that we can serve our clients in the best possible way. Now, for those of you who haven't met me yet, I'm known as MeetSabiha, and I help international job hunters land their dream jobs in less time. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Webb. Chris, what have we got coming up for our first episode back on the airwaves?
Yes, thanks, Sabiha. And Sabiha says a very warm welcome to any of you who are watching or listening either via the CDI YouTube channel or the new CDI Spotify channel. So warm welcome to both. So yes, I'm Chris Webb. I'm a career consultant currently working in the higher education sector, but I tend to have my kind of fingers in a number of pies. I'm the co-chair of the ADCAS Graduate Transitions Task Group, and generally kind of write and blog on all things careers related with a particular focus on AI of late, which is something we'll kind of come to perhaps later in this series. And as we say, this is our first episode of the relaunched We Are Careers. And we thought, well, what are we doing at the moment? What's happening in the world? And at the time of recording, we are just under a week away from a general election in the UK. So today, when we're recording this, it is Friday, the 28th of June, just for transparency. And we're all eagerly awaiting the general election on Thursday, the 4th of July next week. So, of course, what else could we focus on but a general election special? And to help us kind of dig through what the different political parties are offering and possibly what that might mean for the career development sector, we have none other than the CDI Chief Executive, David Morgan. So, David, very warm welcome back to the show.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, it's great to be back with you in this new format. And I'm really looking forward to being able to watch and now listen to the shows every fortnight and to be the first of many guests. So thank you for having me. It's been lovely to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you with us, David. Looking very dashing today, by the way. Now, previous viewers and listeners of the show will remember our Careers Cheers segment, where we celebrate innovative and inspiring members of the careers community, or simply giving a shout out to something positive that's happening in the careers world since our previous show. So, David, let's start with you first. What is your Careers Cheers for this week?
Well, I'm going to cheat slightly, and it's not for this week, it's for last week. I want to give a big careers cheers to everyone who entered, who was shortlisted, or who won a UK Career Development Award, which we presented at the ceremony last week. We announced all the winners of the 8 awards that have been shortlisted and judged. And we also announced and welcomed Janet College and Caroline Parry as new CDI Fellows. And then probably the biggest careers cheers of all was to the winner of the Dr. Rodney Cox Lifetime Achievement Award, who was Jan Ellis, who was my predecessor of Chief Exec of the CDI and has a long history of doing fantastic work in career development and continues to do so. So congratulations to everyone. And you can see the announcements and quick catch-ups with the winners by Chris and Sabiha on CDI's feed on X.
I had such a great night, honestly, David. And I'm going to be giving a little bit of a quick careers cheer nod to the event as well. But before we do that, Chris, I've got to ask you, what is your careers cheers story?
I mean, I feel like we might all be in the same boat here. So I've also taken the cop out and gone for something from the UK Career Development Awards. But yeah, what a night it was, and definitely worthy of multiple careers cheers. So mine's a little bit more specific. So it's a shout out to Deirdre Hughes and the Career Chat UK team, who won the Use of Technology in Career Development Award at the UK CDA. And really, that's because I've been working with their team over the past year on our AI in Action webinar series that we've kind of been dropping on a sort of bi-monthly basis. And they're a great team. They're doing really good work in terms of connecting what's happening with AI to high quality, ethically sound, responsible sort of use of that technology for CEIAG. So yeah, big shout out to them. Well-deserved recognition, and one of the many award winners on the night.
There were. And speaking of AI, we've definitely got a theme running this show, because my shout out is going to one particular individual who, for me, honestly, is a constant inspiration when it comes to embracing technology and being innovative. And that would be you see his hair before you see him. So I'm kind of giving a little bit of a hint here of who I'm sort of kind of giving a nod out to. And it is none other than the amazing Danny Mirza. And what was really amazing, and I didn't even realize, and I don't know if you guys did as well, on the night he was recording the careers sort of kind of award ceremony on these glasses that he was wearing by Meta AI and Ray-Ban. And if you haven't watched, whether you were there that night or you're still catching up, go on over to Danny Mirza's. He is, just to sort of kind of give you some context, on LinkedIn. He's the head consultant at the talent team at Coventry University. And he did a post a couple of days ago where he uploaded the video that he recorded on the glasses that he was wearing. And just phenomenal. It inspires me when I see our community embracing technology, embracing AI to serve our communities and the clients that we serve in a much more inclusive manner. So my shout out is to Danny Mirza. Check out his post on LinkedIn and do follow him if you're not following him as well. So those are our careers cheers for today. What's the show all about today, Chris? What are we going to be delving into today?
Well, yes, as we kind of alluded to earlier, we've got something fairly sort of sizable coming up in the UK over the next week. And it is, of course, the general election. It's going to be a chance for eligible voters across the UK to really, I suppose, make their decisions about who they want running the country for at least the next 4 to 5 years, whether they want to stick with the incumbent or go with something new. And of course, it's a big decision for everyone, but it's particularly, I think, for careers professionals, because so much of the work that we do intersects and overlaps with a lot of different policy areas. And that's really what we're going to kind of be focusing on today. So I suppose, David, we've kind of mentioned it or alluded to it a little bit there, but the big question to start with, I guess, is why should careers professionals care about this general election? Why should they be bothered?
Yeah, good question. And we've spent a lot of time looking at this, so we hope it is important to people. I think there's probably 3 broad ways in which the election is relevant. Any election is relevant. The first are the promises that relate directly to career development. So what are the different parties saying that will have a direct impact or directly about the career development profession? So of course we're really interested in those and hoping that they'll work in a way that means we can progress as a profession. The second are those implications for the wider system we work in. So we don't work in splendid isolation. We are part of the education system, the skills system, the employment jobs system, but also those wider areas such as, wider support for young people, for those with mental health challenges and so on. So is that wider context is really important in terms of what we're working in. And finally, I think it's about the context of the country we live and work in. So what are the different parties saying, and what picture are they painting of a country that we aspire to be for the future? So as careers professionals, but also as citizens, this is a big deal. This is a big decision point. And I think it's worth also pointing out, just very quickly, careers, education and skills are devolved to the nation. So it would be easy to see this as an English election for those aspects. But again, the focus the Westminster government takes can set a wider context for the opportunities and the ways of working going forward, such as what is their approach to levels of future devolution. So yeah, really, really important moment. And I think, there's a lot to discuss.
I loved, David, how you broke it down into those 3 different aspects, and particularly how you spoke about how it not just speaks to us as professionals, but also as citizens as well, and also sort of the context wider and the focus of Westminster government in terms of the wider context. So as a follow-up question then, David, what have we seen so far? For anybody who hasn't had time because they are busy with family and work and haven't yet had a chance yet to understand what each of the different parties is talking about, what have we seen so far in the party manifestos around careers, and what might this mean for the careers community in the UK, depending upon who wins the election?
Yeah, so probably best to start with where we are with the election. So as of Friday, the Friday before the election, the polls continue to show Labour have got a strong lead. The poll of polls is putting them at around 40% compared to the Conservatives on 20%. There's not really any overlap, so it's looking pretty likely Labour are going to win. Reform are on 16%, Lib Dems on 12%, and other parties on 6% or less. So this would mean a Labour majority, and depending how it breaks down, a small or larger majority, but a majority, so that they're most likely to be making the decisions. And there is the potential for the Conservatives and the Lib Dems to be potentially vying for second place, depending on how much the Conservatives get hit by tactical voting or the impact of reform and so on. So that's likely to be the shape. And so I'll concentrate first on Labour, who coincidentally have the most direct career development related policies in their manifesto. So for young people, they've made quite a big thing of the 2 weeks worth of quality work experience. That's been a big part of what they've been saying, and alongside that, improving careers advice for young people. Before the election, we were hearing that they were going to promise 1,000 extra careers advisors in English schools. That didn't make it into the manifesto, but Bridget Phillipson was interviewed, I think, on ITN earlier this week. You can find it online, doing a speech where she specifically talked about career development and stated the 1,000 careers advisors again. So we can expect that to be part of their plans if they form the government. Labour are also planning on bringing in a new Youth Futures programme with a network of hubs, including careers advisors, to help young people who are at risk. So that's something that will create more activity. And between those two initiatives, the Work Experience Initiative and the hub, the Youth Futures hubs, they've budgeted them at being around £180 million, which, to give you an idea of the significance, the Careers and Enterprise Company National Careers Service budget combined is currently around £100 million a year. So that's a significant chunk of money coming into careers, assuming it's all additional. A potential major change is in the career support for adults. So one of the big proposals is to create a new national job and career service that brings together the National Career Service and the JCP. So this is a big unknown because we don't have any more details on it, but depending on its remit, structure and objectives for this unit, it could significantly enhance careers and employment support for adults, whether they're in or out of work. But if it's not set up in the right way, or way we would see being beneficial, it could lead to a degrading of the careers aspects if the focus is too much short term, if it falls into that, what DWP sometimes accused of being, any job syndrome. So we'll be really keen to understand the detail of that, and ideally to help inform the design by providing expertise into that. And finally, Labour also talks about transforming the education system, including bringing in a post-16 skills strategy and the creation of a body called Skills England, which would bring together skills strategy across the piece, bringing the employer voice far more and develop the workforce skills of the future. And that could create a lot of value depending on how that works. So something, again, we'll be really keen to see how that goes.
David, I just love that. I feel as if you've just given all of us, as I'm just so tentatively listening to every point that you were making, because you've taken the hard work for me. I don't have to, read about it. You've literally compressed everything that Labour is sort of kind of working on that's going to impact the careers community. And so that's either excited you or made you sad or made you indifferent. However, what about the Conservatives, David? What are the Conservatives saying?
Well, first, I will give a credit later on to the person who wrote our briefings, which I'm taking a lot of this from. But yes, there's been a lot of reading going on. Well, the Conservatives. So it's a little bit different with the Conservatives because to some degree we already knew what their plans were because they've announced a lot of it while they were governing. There is no direct mention in their manifesto of career development, which is disappointing because previously the Prime Minister has spoken about his support for careers. So we were hoping there'd be a bit more in there with that. A lot of the education and skills elements of the manifesto are already in train. So you've got the Advanced British Standard, which is in development. You've got the lifelong learning entitlement. So some of those aspects are already there, and they're referred to in the manifesto. Interestingly, on the education side, there's only one mention in the Conservative manifesto of the T levels, and that's only in relation to them being part of ABS, the Advanced British Standard, alongside A levels. So that's a bit surprising. The headline announcement for young people has been the the announcement about national service, whether going into the armed forces or volunteering. And this could have significant impact for careers professionals, because we've got to try and help young people consider this as they navigate their post-18 choices. So that could be something that needs a lot of working around. The other headline policy has been around the closure of low-quality university courses to fund more apprenticeship places. And interestingly, unlike pretty much all the other major parties, the Conservative manifesto makes no mention of reforming the apprenticeship levy to encourage wider skills development. So that's, again, a bit of a surprise. The Conservatives propose measures to really try and push people back into work. So, we know there's a large number of people who are what's termed as economically inactive at the moment, particularly older workers. The Conservative proposals around pushing people back into work through tougher sanctions, and they specifically say tougher sanctions, whereas Labour's approach is in contrast to that, and it's about providing much greater support to help people back into work. So you've kind of got a carrot and a stick approach from the two main parties.
Yeah, it's important comparison, as you say, David, and also good reason for people to kind of dig into the manifestos in a bit more detail, not just to kind of see maybe what the different parties are offering on each of the policy areas, but also, as you say, to see where there's maybe that direct versus indirect impact on the career development sector. Yes, we can talk about stuff like, a pledged X number of careers advisors, might be kind of a direct sort of policy proposal, but there's also a fair amount of other ones that maybe cut across higher education, further education, reform of how people deliver lifelong training. And to that end, I guess it's useful for us to also sort of look at what some of the other parties potentially are kind of offering on that front too. So anything of note, I guess, from any of the other sort of remaining parties we've not talked about in terms of stuff that career professionals might be interested in hearing about?
Yeah, I think it's always useful to see what the full gamut of political parties are saying, not necessarily because they're going to get into power, but they may have some influence, but also it gives us an idea of are the key messages that we're saying landing more broadly. Of the other parties, the Liberal Democrats are the only ones who really mention careers. They mention strengthening and increasing the availability of careers advice for young people and linking employers more strongly with schools and colleges. So that's really positive. Reform doesn't mention careers at all, and nor do the parties representing Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. But that's pretty much understandable given its devolved responsibility. So they would probably talk about those far more in the nation's elections. Labour, the Lib Dems, Plaid Cymru, and the DUP would all develop an industrial strategy to set out the direction of investment and employment. And that's really valuable because it gives that kind of broader economic context, if you like, and then you can drive a skills strategy or approach from that. The Greens don't mention that, but they do recognise the need to train the workforce to transform the economy. So, there's quite a lot of discussion around the industrial strategy piece and the direction of potentially what future skills need to look like. The Lib Dems focus quite a bit on supporting particularly young people with SEND, disadvantaged pupils. They'll talk about broadening the scope of the curriculum and investing more in high-level technical qualifications, particularly around level 4, level 5. They also look at increasing the availability of apprenticeships and kind of a different slant to the lifelong learning entitlement. They're talking about a lifelong skills grant, which would give £5,000 per adult initially, and potentially, if the economy allows, rising up to £10,000 for people to retrain throughout their life. Reform's manifesto pulls a bit in the opposite direction on some issues. So in contrast to the Lib Dems on supporting young people SEND, they talk about doubling the number of PRUs to exclude pupils from mainstream schools. They would aim to scrap interest on student loans and introduce 2-year courses to reduce the cost of university, but they're also talking about reducing student numbers. One of the kind of throwaway things on the reform side, it's a very indirect piece, but could affect careers should they form a government, is that they would look for a 5% budget cut across every government department, and that could severely restrict spending, and that could impact areas like careers more than maybe others.
Yeah, as you say, David, it's important to kind of note what all the parties are offering, because of course, as you say, looking at the polls, possibly kind of gives us an indication of, who's more likely to kind of end up in number 10. But actually, we've seen some of those parties that perhaps traditionally have been behind the Labour and Conservatives and normally kind of feature as the top two, really sort of moving up in the polls, so that there are now kind of, some commentators perhaps predicting that we could have a slightly different opposition. So we might not necessarily have the traditional either Labour or Conservatives in power and the other one in opposition, we may actually have a different opposition altogether. And of course, the ideas that they're presenting could well influence then the pressure they put on whoever does get into government. So yeah, really important to kind of check what they're doing. And as you say, of course, every policy decisions that's made potentially has that impact on careers professionals, whether it's to do with the general budget for the types of services that might hire careers professionals, or kind of a big, wider, holistic strategy that may at some point along the line involve careers professionals, whether that's directly working with clients, whether that's needing to enhance our labour market knowledge to kind of see how that fits in with a new industrial strategy, or thinking, I guess, about where we can kind of position ourselves if new roles become available that, I guess, play to the strengths of careers professionals. So lots and lots of stuff to absorb there. I guess, as we kind of come towards the end of the podcast, we're recording this on Friday, the 28th of June, as we've said, but this is going out on Wednesday, the 3rd of July. So if we've got any careers professionals who are watching or listening and are looking for maybe some last minute kind of reading or last minute sort of information to kind of take away to digest before they head to the polls on Thursday, the 4th of July, that might help, kind of impact or help them think about their decision, what would you suggest, I guess?
Well, I will use this as an opportunity to do an extra Careers Cheers shout out to Michelle Stewart, who's kindly reviewed all the party manifestos for a CDI briefing, which you can find on the news section of the CDI website. And she's been updating it as manifestos have been released. I've contributed a little bit, and we've added in additional news as it's come. But that gives a really good summary of all the manifestos across all the parties. So you can catch that there. You can also watch the recorded webinar that I was part of with Career Development Policy Group colleagues, Claire Viney from CRAC, Tristram Hooley from ISEGS, and Jan Ellis, where we explored the manifesto promises a bit more. You can watch Tristram and I have a little disagreement about what some of it means, and shared the revised Career Guidance Guarantee, which is the CDPG's call for the best career guidance across for young people and adults. There's also loads of other things out there as well. I would encourage people to check out, you can find it all on social media particularly, but people like Tristram and Janet College have been doing updates around manifestos, what people are saying. There's loads of organisations working across this space, for careers, education, skills, and so on, who are commenting on what's happening within the election. So yeah, there's loads out there, easy to find, and encourage you to absorb it all.
David, thank you so much for signposting. This is one of the things that I love about the careers community, how there is this level of support, how we encourage ourselves to keep up to date and understand what sort of, the bigger picture. And today the theme has been general election special, it's political. And whether you are a political person or not a political person, just understanding that these topics, what we've been exploring today, matter and impact us. For some of us, it's a direct impact. I work with the international community. So, visa status, PSW routes, all of those really impact the community that I serve, and has been a huge concern in the dialogue and the communication that I've had. Or perhaps maybe on a more local level, perhaps you're a career professional that's working on the ground in a deprived area, trying to support people back into employment, whatever that looks like, or in schools where your budgets have been slashed. This impacts each and every one of us. So to be able to, what you've done today, David, is you've allowed us to make an informed decision. And then if we're still unsure, you've signposted us into different directions of people that we can follow, so that when we do go to the polls, on Thursday, we know we're making that informed choice. So Friday, 5th of July, are we going to have a new government in post one way or another? Maybe. We'll find out soon enough. But what happens next? What is the CDI doing? What's the CDI going to be up to? And also as well, we'll give a sneak reveal of who we've got coming up. Chris, right? Is that correct? We're giving a sneak peek of who we've got coming up on the next episode as well. So David, firstly to you, what is the CDI doing next?
Well, I think to your point, there will be a new government on the 5th, whether it's the same party or a different party. If you look at the number of people who've stepped down and what the results are likely to be, even if the Conservatives were to win, the makeup of that government's going to be quite different. So yeah, we've got to be prepared for change. So one of the things we were doing, we've always been doing, we do prior to the election, and we'll continue to do after the election, which is really important, is to continue to work with the civil service. So they're there regardless of who's the ministers, but it's really important that we help then make sure they have accurate and up-to-date information that they can share with the incoming minister. There's been a huge amount of work across the policy landscape and research in the past few years related to career development, the value of career development. So we've been feeding that in and will continue to feed that in. So I think that's a critical one. We will also work to engage the ministers themselves. We'll do that as the CDI, and we'll do that as part of the Career Development Policy Group. The Career Development Policy Group's planning a parliamentary event in the autumn to formally launch the revised Career Guidance Guarantee. And that's a fantastic opportunity to meet people working in government. And we're working on developing the main phase of the CDI's Value and Careers campaign. So we've completed our research around 5,000 UK adults about their careers, and we'll use that to showcase the value careers a profession can have for individuals, the economy and society. So we're looking at how we do that in the best possible way in autumn. So there'll be loads of opportunities for everyone in the careers profession to get engaged both with the Career Guidance Guarantee and the Value and Careers campaign. And I guess more immediately, you guys are going to have Tristram Hooley on in the next show to talk about what we can expect from the government, whoever's elected on the 4th.
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't typically like to do spoilers, but we're going to do one this time anyway. So yeah, you've heard a lot of reference on the show today to the Career Development Policy Group. That's exactly who we've kind of reached out to for our next episode. So yes, we're going to be welcoming Tristram Hooley back to the show. This is one's going to be going out on Wednesday, the 17th of July. And this is going to be all about, I suppose, our debrief, sort of picking through the debris of the post-general election period and trying to work out what that might mean, drawing on perhaps some of the themes we've kind of talked about today. So don't miss that. So the only thing really that remains left to be said is a massive thank you, David, for joining us today and for sharing all of those kind of insights about the manifestos from a career development perspective, but also some of those great resources. What we will do is we'll make sure to kind of put both in the YouTube description and in the podcast notes on Spotify links to any of those resources if you want to check them out in your own time. And just a reminder, really, do subscribe to both. Do kind of keep an eye on what's coming up. We're going to be dropping sort of over the next few weeks a little bit more detail about some of the other episodes that are going to be coming up across the rest of the year. And of course, if you yourself are interested at any point getting involved or being part of one of the podcast episodes, do reach out to us. We have now got a bespoke CDI We Are Careers email address, which we will put in the YouTube description and Spotify pod notes. So do get in touch with us if you've got any questions about the show or if you want to be involved in a future episode. So until then, we will see you on the 17th of July, either in visuals or kind of through the airwaves on Spotify. We hope you take a bit of time to really think about how you're going to place your vote next week. I hope you enjoy the chaos of the general election period, and we will see you all in a fortnight's time. See you in the career sphere.
Take care. Goodbye.
Cheers. See you all.